left, right.
Yo, what is up? SipTalk. Excuse the beeping noise, even the streets in the suburbs make noise. But this is the Matt Gaetz and Pet Peeves episode. Give it a listen. Let me know what you think. And also, when it comes to pet peeves, let me know in the comments. DM me your biggest pet peeves. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Crisis film.
Cheers.
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 Welcome to episode 92 of Sip Talk. My name is Justin DiGiulio, joined by David Boswell, political scientist, and James the Bosnator Boswell out of Charleston, South Carolina. James is a philosopher, accountant, bartender. What am I missing, James?
Professional referee.
Oh, professional referee. James keeps the rules. I think it's wild how somehow you went from philosopher to accountant, as if there's some correlation.
Peter, will you please get a job?
Why?
Welcome for you guys who are listening. Obviously, we're getting a late start if you guys regularly tune in. If you tune in and you do not already follow us on YouTube or any of the audio podcast platforms, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and follow this channel. We would greatly appreciate it. And the production quality is a hair better across those platforms. And you can watch and listen whenever you'd like. So we are joined by David Boswell out of Sacramento, California, the political scientist. Is that your official designation once you graduate with a political science degree?
I guess so. I also have a Spanish degree, so I don't know what that would be. Professional Spanisher?
Muy bien.
Ciencia political.
So we got a few things we're going to talk about today. I put a question out there on Instagram this week asking for more pet peeves from people. So I want to cover some pet peeves because, as always, they're funny ones. And pet peeves are just things that drive people fucking insane. And they're usually just stupid shit that other people do. And I think if we continue to draw attention to these things, people will stop doing dumb shit, or at least some people will catch themselves doing dumb shit. So
Changing the world 18 viewers at a time.
18 viewers at a time. We get some listeners too. Either way, I'm gonna work on a little cocktail here. What are you drinking over there on the left coast, David?
Left coast, very appropriately. I've got a Jeff's Joint red blend. It was a $4 pick up from grocery outlet, so it fit the bill yesterday when I needed it most.
You bought a $4 bottle of wine?
Yeah, I try and keep most of my bottles of wine under $5 at grocery outlet. You can find some really good stuff there, though.
Well, that's expensive by Spain standards.
Oh yeah,
guys, I've never had a decent bottle of wine for less than $10.
Have you had a decent second bottle of wine for less than $10 though?
Probably. And that's a good life lesson. When you're serving people drinks, you're serving people anything really. You serve the best first, especially when it comes to alcohol, so people can taste it and enjoy it. And once they got a little alcohol in their system, you can let it slide a little bit. So that means your expensive bourbons and whiskeys up front, and then your Evan Williams afterwards. Most people aren't going to know the difference. So we have Rashed Galeb, our former producer, and he is monitoring us. He's monitoring the live feed. So if you guys have questions, actually, there's a funny question right now through TikTok. How often do you guys drink?
Well, it depends on how you define drink.
Well, how do you define drink, James?
Well, if you have one or two drinks in a night, I don't consider that drinking. For me, definition of drinking is when you're drinking with a purpose.
Other than hydration. But so I think anytime you can, I guess it's by the definition of the person asking the question. But I think 2 drinks is an acceptable amount to drink any day, anytime throughout the day. You go out for lunch, you have 2 beers, you can come back to work, you should feel fine. You should feel fine. If you don't feel fine, then maybe you stick to 1 beer or no beers. But outside of the dieting that I've been doing recently, I pretty much have a drink every day. Which I don't think that's bad. I have a beer at lunch or maybe a glass of scotch when I get home or something like that. But that's it. And now there are some times when we do the podcast, which is twice a week, where I'll have 4, 5, 6 drinks. But
it's been a while since we've really gone hard on the podcast. I think the last time that we really tuned it up was the election night.
Yeah, possibly. Rosh caught me one of the times. He watched the podcast and he was like, I could tell you were getting a little toasted towards the end, but you managed to hold it together very nicely. But that's the idea. That's the idea of the podcast, is that you get to hear some conversations where we're not really holding back. We're not worried about political correctness. And I think it's important to be able to showcase.
And then the videos get taken down.
Like episode 90. But I think it's important to have conversations where people don't really give a shit. You're getting honest dialogue, which probably that's why our last episode got taken down. Even though I still, as much as I was the one that took the brunt of that podcast episode, I still did try to appeal it and try to get it reposted.
They take it down.
Why do they take it down? I can't say.
Were you promoting too much vaccine disinformation?
we did not talk about any.
It certainly wasn't me and the Derv.
I don't think we had any disinformation on the episode at all, actually. But so I want to get into the topic, and then we can bullshit a little bit, because the last episode, James and I were talking about this guy called Matt Gaetz, and I think his parents called him that first. And apparently he did some bad stuff and he's in trouble. I know nothing about it. I happened to see a headline earlier today in regards to him. His name popped up. He was a goofy looking guy. I didn't read the article because I figured we'd talk about it tonight. I know nothing about this guy. So David, who's Matt Gaetz? Why do I feel like I already have an opinion on him, even though I know literally nothing about him?
Well, I try not to have violence in politics, but he does have a supremely punchable face. He's just so smarmy looking, and
probably the most
personality backs that up.
Congress.
Definitely up there. Matt Gaetz, he is a former state legislator. He made the jump up to the big leagues in 2016 with the rest of the MAGA crowd, and really has just established himself as a very, very ardent supporter of Trump and his policies, and so really just anything to own the libs and MAGA. That's very much his brand.
Okay, so what state?
Florida.
Okay, fair enough. And you said he's what is he in Florida? He's a
congressman.
He's a congressman. Okay.
Panhandle.
I was going to say what district? So northern Florida.
Very, very conservative. That district will not go blue anytime in our lifetimes, probably.
Florida Panhandle is basically southern Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the vibe that I get when I think of it. So you got a lot of Trump supporters down there. And then, which is hardcore Republican, hardcore religious, and he's echoing what his constituents want, right?
To an extent, he has the distinction of being one of very few members of Congress that has actually never gotten a bill passed into law, and that's kind of weird after 4 years, especially when they had such big majorities when they started back in 2016. So he's really not doing a whole lot in the interests of his district, but because it's so red, he is doing what they want. They want him to go out and fight and punch, and it doesn't matter if you're actually bringing anything back to the district. That's not their concern.
How old is he?
38.
Okay, that's not too young. I saw his picture. I thought he might have been like late 20s, but I don't see any hardcore Republican areas electing anybody young.
There's a few.
North Carolina elected Madison Cawthorn. He's only 24, 25, I think.
Wow, how did he pull that off?
Well, he's attractive. He is clean cut. and he's disabled, and it works. He got the endorsement from Trump, and in that district, that was enough. That's all he needed.
Interesting. Okay. So got Matt Gaetz. He's a pretty right-wing guy, super conservative. He's 38 years old.
Yes.
Why are we talking about him?
Goes back to a very obscure government position called the tax collector in Florida. And somehow he was buddy-buddy with Joel Greenberg, who was indicted last year. And that's how this whole thing spun out, was the investigation starting there with him kind of investing from the office. And then it just took on a whole new life. So Gaetz and Greenberg, they're good buddy-buddy. It's kind of weird, though, because Gates's district is up here in Panhandle, and the tax collector is Seminole County, which is Orlando, which is in the middle. So, like, there's really not much of a reason why he would spend so much time there. But
now we know why.
Yeah, now we know why. There's a lot to unpack in the story and how it came to be, but the long and short of it is,
let's get to the short of it, because I have no idea why
sex trafficking investigation, because allegations coming out of this investigation that Matt Gaetz had sex with a 17-year-old and paid for her to accompany him across state lines, which gets into federal territory, which is really, really bad. There's also the other allegations of paying women for sex through a website called Seeking Arrangement. It's a sugar daddy site where it's not always money for sex, but maybe vacations or dinners. It's very close to escorting, but that's if people want to do that.
I know absolutely nothing about that world. So is that legal?
In the sense of no money changing hands, yes. If you start to do this with minors, giving them anything of value, it becomes trafficking. But the prostitution is the exchange of money, and in some jurisdictions there are bigger prohibitions on that than others. I mean,
so he was
Nevada, it's legal.
So he was sleeping with a girl that was under 18.
Allegedly.
That's the allegation.
Okay, and this hasn't been confirmed. Like
the 17, he's denied that.
He's
over and over.
What has she said? And I imagine maybe
she hasn't said anything.
We don't know who she is.
We don't know who she is. Okay.
No.
So this feels like pretty weak allegations. I feel like
no,
it's not. Okay. So someone's accused him of sleeping with a 17-year-old. She seems to not be involved. Her parents don't seem to be involved.
Well, she's a minor, so she probably has some legal protections of her identity. Additionally, this is something that the investigation into his behavior actually started when Trump was president. And the investigation was opened up by Bill Barr's Justice Department. And Bill Barr disliked and distrusted Matt Gaetz enough that he never wanted to be in the same room as him.
Interesting. Okay.
So this is not like a Democratic takedown. This started while Trump was president. And there's also allegations that, like, on the floor of Congress, Gaetz was showing pictures of, like, naked women to people on the Congress floor of, like, hey, man, check out this naked chick in a hula hoop.
There's also allegations that when he was in the Florida State House, he had a game with other legislators where they got points based on who they would hook up with, like 10 points for a lobbyist, 20 points for a female legislator. So there's a lot of this behavior that's been reported on for a long time with him. And now it's just really, really gaining some traction. People are looking a little bit closer at those past stories. Like, we all knew something was wrong here, but that doesn't matter.
Here's another thing that I just heard today is that Trump initially wanted to defend Matt Gaetz because Matt Gaetz has been so loyal to him. And I don't know who it was that talked him out of it, but basically Trump had to be talked out of defending Matt Gaetz because the allegations are that bad.
So grab him by the pussy, thinks that just walk away.
No. Trump was okay with it. Trump was gonna go to bat for him, and somebody said no.
Okay, well,
this is a bad idea.
So, but basically, it sounds like he's kind of a douchebag, and
he's the distillation of, like, every negative stereotype about a frat boy.
Yeah. And he's super entitled. His dad was a legislator in Florida before. It's a political dynasty.
He got a DUI when he was in his mid-20s or something, and, like, got bailed out by his dad.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I don't think of a DUI as a serious crime.
No, but it's getting bailed out and not having to suffer consequences from it.
Well, yeah, fair enough on that. That's it's not fair for everybody else, but so it sounds like I'd like to know more about the underage thing. It just sounds like he's kind of a dickhead and he's in the public eye.
Yeah.
And then he may have.
But if I were in the public eye, they wouldn't find me sleeping with 17-year-olds.
Dude, that's the weird part. At 38 years old,
I'm not in the public eye, and I still don't sleep with 17-year-olds.
3 years ago he was 35 and she was 14. Like
it's hard to know specifics about it because this relationship happened 2 years ago. So she was 17 at the time when this was happening.
Okay,
she's over 18 at this point.
Okay, but either way, yeah, you get somebody in his 30s, mid 30s, hooking up with somebody who is
still in high school,
junior in high school.
Dude, that's so weird. I as far as I know, we all went to the same high school. I don't know how. Like, I just can't imagine like a 16, 17-year-old girl talking with somebody that's like, approaching 40. That's like fucking weird, dude.
When I worked at the bank, I felt awkward whenever I was helping like teenagers open up their first bank account with their parents. There's like, it just feels weird to be talking to you.
Well, but exactly. And
no, even when I was in college, like when I was a freshman in college, like the idea of even trying to date like a senior in high school, like that's 1 year difference. But it's just as soon as you're out of high school, basically you don't touch high school.
So just heads up, you guys are all watching. We're talking about Matt Gaetz. And if you're watching on Instagram or Facebook and you have questions, throw them in the comments. Rosh will let us know in our group chat. So I see some questions coming through, but I can't quite see the feed. So throw the questions out there on Instagram, and Rosh will forward them our way. But the fact that you feel a little weird, in my thinking, David, is like the right approach, and then you have to, like figure out your way to navigate around that. But because it is like it's a weird situation, men and women, and feeling weird, I think, is probably the appropriate response. Because if you don't feel weird or you don't notice anything's off, oftentimes you're that creepy old dude putting your hands on the young lady and not picking up on the social cues that like something's a bit off. So, I mean, that's me, and I'm more introverted and definitely, very socially awkward. I spent a lot of time not trying to be socially awkward and picking up and reading social cues and things like that. And I've gotten very good at it, but there's often times where I'm like, oh, this is new. I don't quite feel comfortable. What should I be doing? But I think it's the people that kind of coast through and naturally don't pick up on any of this stuff. Like that's where it gets.
Well, I think to tie it back to Matt Gaetz, I'm going to go out on the limb here and say that he knew exactly what he was doing. This is not socially awkward. Like, oh, it turns out I thought you were older. No.
That actually gets to one of the other really weird stories about the whole Florida tax county collector. People would turn in driver's licenses and they would just toss it into a bin, and then they're supposed to shred them. One of the employees in the tax county office said that they saw a video of him and Joel Greenberg, the former tax collector who's under indictment, planning a plea deal. That happened today. Very weird news conference.
He's probably going to flip.
But definitely going to flip. But they would go in, and then there's this video of them like messing around with the IDs on the desk, which definitely seems to confirm what James is saying. Like, he knows that she was underage. He had to get her an ID that she could use so they could go out.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
No. Hold on. I think you're most of the way correct on this story, where there's video of the tax collector, Gates's associate, like taking IDs, but I think it was that like he used that as a way of like the IDs were turned in for a reason. It wasn't just like an expired ID or something. It was like seized IDs where like it might have been some like minor legal trouble, and that's why the ID was turned in. And I think it might have been that like the tax collector's like, these are all like young women that have some legal problems or whatever. I might have leverage over them.
And then share basically what you said is people go to the DMV or whatever reason, some department gets a hold of people's IDs and then they happen to see this girl's ID and give it to Matt Gaetz. That doesn't sound plausible to me.
It's Joel Greenberg, who was the tax collector. He had access to those IDs. So that part is very plausible. There's a very straight line connection there. Matt Gaetz was in Seminole County in the tax office with him at points.
Okay.
Which again, is
so
weird.
basically,
He's up in Panhandle.
the guy's got a bunch of women, young women, or just people, but he's selecting the hot young chicks, super young chicks, and saying, here's a bunch of people that could benefit from knowing you. Is that what you're alleging here? Because that seems improbable to me. It's possible,
no, I don't think that's what it is. I think that they used the IDs that were seized as fake IDs for the people that they were meeting.
I'm reading the news article right now, and it says prosecutors say they can prove that Greenberg was working to make more believable fake IDs.
Okay, so he was supplying younger girls with fake IDs.
That'll probably come out in court.
All right. Well,
there's a lot of unknowns right
but
now.
that's it. I mean, the thing is that there's a certain level of just being a scumbag that that it just doesn't carry well through life. Like, it sounds like, this guy's just a dick, and then some shit blows up, and we have no idea. And we're just like, well, obviously the guy was doing something shady. And even if he wasn't doing something that shady, it was still shady enough. And he's kind of a scumbag. So, and the people
it might
around
not be
him,
illegal, but it's weird.
Yeah, but
what he was doing is illegal. But the taking the IDs was definitely illegal.
Well, that was more Greenberg than Gaetz. And I guess again, we're still going to hear more about that. But for Gaetz right now, the biggest thing that he's worried about is a 17-year-old. The rest of it, like, you can find gray lines there where giving money and stuff, gifts to people doesn't quite cross that line. But it's a 17-year-old that's going to fry that, if that turns out to be true.
And what it is he was what it boils down to is the guy's a fucking scumbag, and he was sleeping with a girl that's way, one, illegally young, and then two, you guys see Rash's comments here, right? So what it boils down to is he was sleeping with a girl who was way younger than him, and basically effectively a child. That's the fucked up part.
Yeah,
you can say you can turn it any way you want and say it's sex trafficking because they cross state lines together. That's all bullshit as far as I'm concerned. It's not like he was bringing people in from other countries and trafficking them in as prostitutes. He was just sleeping with somebody who was a child. So we can call it sex trafficking, but at the end of the day, he was sleeping with a child. So yeah. I don't care if he took her to Georgia or if they went to Denny's. Either way, he was fucking her. Like, that's the fucked up part. So when you call it sex trafficking, to me, that's distracting from the topic, because then you're like, whoa, what was he doing? And then when you find out that he wasn't trafficking in women for prostitution, you're like, oh, well, then it's not, it's not that bad. End of the day, he was sleeping with a minor, and he's a scumbag.
Yeah.
So that's pretty okay. So
pretty tight distillation of the issue.
Yeah.
Let's put this out to the audience, and just see if anybody else has heard about this news story, what their thoughts are on it, if we're getting anything wrong here, and also, like, but especially for the females out there.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Like, think about the time that you were 17. How would you respond if some dude that's in his mid-30s was hitting on you?
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And I was reading an article today about something to do with Hugh Hefner, and basically how any of the women that moved into the house had to have already slept with him in order to move in. And
there's a lot of gross things about the Playboy Mansion.
Yeah, but then I was thinking, so what James is saying is, imagine you're 17 and you got a 35-year-old guy hitting on you. At the time, he was 35, right?
Let's call it that.
Yeah. Which, again, 3 years before, he was 32, 33 years old, and you were 14. Like, that's just weird, man. But the age gap thing, which we've talked about before, it's all really perspective, and it's just, I mean, we're all in our 30s, and like looking that far on the other end of the age spectrum is like fucking weird. So, and
it
then
makes me feel particularly gross just to even think about what he doing the same things, hitting on a 17-year-old. Like that skeeves me out just even thinking about that.
well, but then think about it like you're a mid-20s, early 30s Playboy playmate sleeping with somebody in their 70s and 80s or 60s even. You know, that was Hugh Hefner's thing. But the thing is,
There's a big difference there.
There is a big difference. There's a huge difference. But I'm just tying it into the age gap, which, you know, I don't think it's as bad at the older ages of things. And also, I think it's less on Hugh Hefner. I feel like anybody who's kind of getting in and around him, you know, into the mansion or around him kind of knows what the game is.
Yeah, and also there's a huge difference between age 17 and even age 21 or 22.
Exactly, which is why when you contextualize somebody who's 33, 34, 35 years old with someone who's 17 is a child.
Yeah.
So, and I you know, I see there's a decent number of women on TikTok. I don't have any ages, but I feel a lot of people I see a lot of people saying, I feel disgusted. And again, where are the parents? What's going on? And yeah, I mean, just think like
you can't put this on the parents.
You can't put this on the parents, but to a degree, like I don't know the family dynamic there. I don't know what was going on with the girl. We don't know who she is.
She could have easily just lied to her parents about what she was doing.
Exactly.
And how would they have been able to find out? This is not on the parents.
Yeah, exactly. But like if the parents were aware that their 16, 17-year-old daughter was hanging out with somebody who's in his mid 30s, that would be a bit.
I'm sure the parents didn't know, and if they did, they would have done whatever they could to stop it.
What could you do to stop it when it's a congressman, though? Like that's the.
Well, you could call the local newspaper and say, "Hey, this 35-year-old congressman's hitting on my 16-year-old daughter, 17-year-old daughter."
I've got an A1
that might
for
get
you.
it done.
Yeah, this is going to go on A1.
Above the fold.
Yep.
But like I'm thinking I'm in my mid 30s. This other guy is in his mid 30s. He's a prominent public figure and he's hanging out with 16-year-olds. Like that's fucking weird. If I had a friend that was a dude hanging out with 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, like
if he's not 19 himself.
Yeah, no. What do you mean he's not 19 himself? My 35-year-old friend?
No, I'm saying like if he's not the same age.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm saying somebody who's my age.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Mid-30s, hanging out with somebody who's in their teens. Anything, even like I have people in my office that sometimes like we'll go out and, you know, who are on the younger end. I'm like, oh, are you? It is so foreign for me to have to turn because, you know, we go out for lunch or something in the office. And I'm just like, all right, let's get some drinks. And then I have to be like, sometimes, are you 21? Because we have some, we don't have that many young people that work in my office. But, you know, every once in a while, especially like with the interns, I'm just like, oh, are you 21? Because, you know, but that's a very foreign feeling for me. But still, I can't imagine somebody being 4 years younger than that. Like that's very weird.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I don't know if we're getting any more questions about. So just a comment here. I don't know the full story, but what if she lied to the 35-year-old?
That doesn't matter.
How old she was? She says, "No, I'm 22" or something like that.
That doesn't matter for the crime.
No,
it's not a defense.
But I mean, it's very difficult to, and that's how removed I am. But somebody who's 17 years old, how old? What are they going to say? They're 22, 23, even if they're 21. Like that's.
Hey, she probably had a fake ID.
Well, clearly that's what it sounds like.
Danger zone.
And so she could say she was 25. Yeah, she could say she's 25, but still, like, what are the physical tastes that, you know, attributes that this guy was physically attracted to? Because
Let's not answer that question.
well, but I mean that's what it comes down to, like, you know. And then also, what were the, you know, what other traits? This guy's a politician. This is a 16, 17-year-old girl. Like, what are they talking about?
But
So
you're we're trying to guess the mindset of somebody who, again, is just the distillation of all negative frat boy stereotypes.
Mixed with the
hold up here, listen to this.
politics of MAGA.
When I was 26, I was lied to and engaged to an 18-year-old. He told me he was 23. Interesting. And that's through TikTok. So I get it. Like, I remember being in high school with guys that looked like they were 25, especially like when it came to wrestling. Like, we'd go to these, you know, we grew up pretty much in a pretty suburban leaning rural area. And
Big Gay Al.
What's that?
Al DeSandro?
Agostino.
Agostino. He just always appeared like a super old adult to me. Like, I remember walking in 6th grade and seeing just like tower over people.
But yeah, we would go to these wrestling meets, to these schools where you had like these farmer kids that looked like they were 25, 28 years old, and they were huge. And we had to wrestle them, and I would get my ass kicked. I was a terrible wrestler. Actually, I never got my ass handed to me, but I didn't know any moves, so like I would just lose by points.
What about the farmer girl that you wrestled?
Don't go there. That was the thing is I didn't know any wrestling moves. I didn't want to put my hands on this girl in a mean way, and that was a bad wrestling match.
That's a super awkward dynamic for a male wrestler to be in. It's just strange. Well,
it's lose-lose, because if you win the match, you're like, congratulations, man, you beat a girl.
Which I did not. I did not win this wrestling match against a girl. I was stunned the entire match. I didn't want to hurt her. And which, you know, like, and now we're getting into these sports where we have these transgender athletes competing against female athletes, which it's mostly I've heard fewer men complaining that a girl, you know, someone who used to be a girl is now a boy, is, you know, wants to compete with us. It's mostly on the women's end, saying someone who's a man who's turning into a woman is competing.
Yeah, but this is a controversy really devoid of any actual underlying problem, because when you ask the GOP legislators, can you actually point to examples? They come up pretty much empty-handed.
I can point to a few, but not at the high school level. They're at the higher levels. In certain disciplines, there have been trans women athletes that have competed and done very well, and some of the biological females have been like, "Yo, what's the deal with this?" I can point to 2 examples.
So I saw a personal testimony on TikTok or somewhere, or maybe it was Twitter, of a girl that said she should have been first place, but she was second place, and she was beaten by someone who was originally biologically a man. But the way that I look at things is I think we have a lot more time that's going to pass before we run into this issue more often. I definitely think it will be an issue, but people want to complain no matter what. You know, and
it's like the bathroom bill in North Carolina. The issue is never about bathrooms. The issue is about otherizing transgender people, and it's really vicious.
Dude,
they're not coming up with these policies because they want to help the women. They're doing it because they just want to punish transgender people because they disagree with their lifestyle.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. First off, all bathrooms need to be unisex bathrooms. And the stalls need to go from the floor to the ceiling and be more private. I don't know. I'd really like to find out these companies that produce the bathroom stall doors that like have a huge seam in between the door and the wall, and don't go
like that wide.
Yeah, and they don't go floor to ceiling. Like, I don't like, if you go to Europe, every bathroom stall you go to.
And you're like, are you really saving that much money by skimping on like 1 foot of plastic on the floor and 3 inches of plastic on the seam? Is that really like outside your budget?
But how is there not more pushback in the United States? Like, and I also think that, and this is a bit of a further ask, but that all bathrooms should have some type of sound system in there. Like, get a fucking Alexa Dot or something and let it just play.
I'm pretty sure Japan does that, and they've been doing that for the longest time.
Did I ever tell you about my Japanese bathroom experience?
No.
So anytime you walked up, this is in one of the hotels in Tokyo. When you'd approach the bathroom door and you'd walk through like what do you call it? The
Door?
doorway. The door. You walk through the doorway. The light would come on. The light would come on, and you would be greeted in Japanese. So I don't know any Japanese, but it would say like "Konnichiwa," and the light would fade on.
I don't want to have a conversation with something I'm about to poop into.
So you close.
I'm sorry, you know too much.
So you close the door. You close the door, and then the seat was you couldn't manually lower or raise the seat, so you had to push some buttons. So either way, pushing some buttons, I got the seat to go down. So I'm taking a crap in Japan, just chilling out, looking at the buttons, figuring out what I do next. There's no flusher, so I take care of myself. I get some dry paper, I clean my ass, and I start to push some buttons. All of a sudden, it just says something, and a fucking jet stream starts shooting. It's this bidet feature. I wasn't ready for it. I leapt off the toilet. And now it was a jet, man. It's spraying against the fucking ceiling, and I'm pushing all the buttons trying to avoid the jet.
And they're all in Japanese.
It's all Japanese characters. And there's no symbols like a seat up or a seat down. It was one of the weirdest, most foreign experiences of my life, and I don't remember what I did after that. That was the only bathroom I encountered in Japan that was like that. But
I only went to the bathroom once. So
I was only there for 4 days. So depending on how I was eating with a little jet lag, maybe I wasn't as regular as normal. But it was a weird experience. All right, guys, you want to hit some pet peeves, or you want to wrap up on Matt Gaetz here?
I think we covered Gaetz pretty well. I say we dive into some pet peeves.
Cool. There's a comment here real quick that says, any time a person lies in a relationship, they're trying to coerce someone into accepting, they're in the wrong. The lying thing,
is it coercion?
Is it coercion?
I see that point, but sometimes it's just you don't want to own up to something shitty that you did. I don't know if that's coercion.
Coercion carries some kind of like force or consequence to it.
Well, it's taking away their agency to be presented with the facts and make a decision based off of them. So in that sense, it is very deceptive, and I can see it. I think you can make a good argument that way.
Coercion, I was right. So coercion is compelling a party to act in an involuntary manner by use of threats or force.
Okay. Well, what would you call it?
Lying to somebody in a relationship isn't coercion because there's no threat or force. It's deception, and there's, I guess, promissory estoppel, but it's not coercion, because coercion is going to be, you're going to do this or otherwise there's going to be some kind of negative consequence. Whereas if you're lying to somebody, they're acting on their own free will. It's just misinformed.
It's deceptive, and it's taking away. It's force, and that's taking away their choice. I agree with you that there's no threat involved, so coercion might not be the best word for it, but it is definitely involuntary.
Well, let me give maybe a poor example. But say you're in a dorm, and a girl comes up to the dorm because maybe they think you're the captain of the basketball team or something, and it's actually your roommate, and they come in and they have maybe a drink with you or something like that. And then they start coming on to you thinking you're this captain person. And then you sleep together, and then they find out the next day that you weren't that person. What is that? It's
not coercion. That's deception.
It's not coercion. Now, deception, is there an element of rape in there? And what if you didn't know?
No, it's not an element of rape, because rape is forcible sexual conduct.
It's an issue of consent for sure, but I think
rape is forcible sexual conduct. This is going to be deception, and I don't think there's, like, if you lie about who you are to get someone to sleep with you, that's not a crime. Like, that's something where
well, that's what I'm getting at.
You're a bad person, but
I'm not saying you should do it. It's not a crime.
I was gonna call out lying a second ago and just saying, I fucking hate lying, man. Like it's a bad thing to get into the habit of doing, and especially when it comes to using it for your advantage. Like, and you know, it's just a really scumbaggy thing to do. And I don't know. It's people got to lie less, man, because it's just not cool. And you're never going to have anybody that close to you.
Think about how hard it is to combat lying, though, because lying is a solution to all of your problems.
Sure, until somebody finds out, and then they put no faith in you after that.
Right, but as long as they don't find out, you've solved all your problems.
I keep thinking of American Beauty where he's outside smoking for the first time. I'm ready to go. Oh, I'm in trouble.
I don't know this thing you're talking about.
To answer Rash's comment about Maria asking what we're talking about, we started off talking about Matt Gaetz and the sex trafficking allegations against him, and now we've morphed into a conversation about coercion, lying, and it's really hard for us to sum up what we're talking about at any point during the podcast.
Well, all right. So let's get into some pet peeves because I think these are good. On
a related note,
pet peeves. One of our agents, Emma, came to me and she's like, because I put a questionnaire on Instagram. She's like, I gave you a whole bunch. So I'm going to read a few of hers. And then there's a handful of other ones that came in. Feel free to add some if you guys want. And so we got driving slow in the fast lane, but what about people that ride your ass when you're doing a speed limit in the regular lane? Because I think
just go around.
They should,
Yeah.
but like, what the fuck? You know, the issue is them being on your ass. Like, dude, like
depends on the street, because if they are having to take a right turn, maybe they can't. Maybe they have to stay in that.
Well, fair enough, but that happens to me all the time on the highway coming home because like the traffic's reasonably heavy still all the way out here away from the city, but you know, I can't always get around somebody in time for the exit, but I don't ride their ass because that's a dickish thing to do. And I could see how that could be a pet peeve.
And how much time is it really costing you? 10 or 15 seconds?
Dude, that time adds up. And then I got no signals, which was a pretty common one in our original pet peeve episode, people signaling. That, you know, I'm not a great signaler when to me the move seems obvious, but I do try to convey my future actions to other people on the road. So I get that. Loud chewers, that drives me nuts.
The sound of people eating is awful.
No, but I have to draw a line. If you're eating something crunchy,
No,
that there has to be some allowance.
really. Well, crunchy, yeah, because you can't really do anything about. But it's the
that's terrible.
Chewing with your mouth open, that's terrible.
But it's do what you can to try and make your eating as quiet as possible within reason.
Dad was bad about that.
Yep. My former roommate was also bad about that.
And so, but then I got the next one.
Jason is a pet peeve incarnate.
All right. So the next one I got is bad manners in general. And I feel like
it's too broad.
It is, but here's I was like, that's actually a really good one because manners are not really taught anymore. Like the parents don't know manners, just general manners. And it's not being taught anywhere. Nobody's going to like these finishing schools anymore. It's not being taught at home. People rarely eat at a dining table.
Who goes to a finishing school?
They still have that in the South. They still have that.
Yeah,
I'm here.
Very, very weird.
But I think that could be really good for certain people. And the thing is, like, yes, some of that's going out the door, and like society, you know, it's changed. You know, culture is changing a little bit around that. But like, try going on a date. Like, it's going to bite you in the ass in certain instances. You know, I just think everybody should read a book on manners and just be kind of aware of some general manners, especially when it comes to eating in restaurants. If anybody is a waiter who's listening to us right now, and has seen some bad manners, I'd love to hear about that. I know it's kind of a general question, but I'd love to hear about some infractions you've seen of some dickish people that just don't have very good manners.
One of the biggest ones is just being a dick to your server.
Oh, that is literally the next one on my list. People who are rude to their servers. It's really observable thing that people don't realize that the person waiting on them or the bartender or the host or the person cleaning is just another person just like them. And
Just trying to get through the day.
and they treat them like a lesser person, which I think is a really, I got a good one on that actually. I was at Hudson Yards yesterday, and it didn't happen to me yesterday, but Hudson Yards is this new establishment. There's basically like a shopping mall downstairs, and it's got like all these super high end stores.
So we're like Pinecone looking building, right?
That's like an upside down. It's called the Vessel, but it looks like a honeycomb.
That's a stupid name.
Yeah, the Vessel is a stupid name, and they've closed it down because people keep jumping off of it and committing suicide. Fucking,
I'm laughing at that.
But well, it's a tall establishment, and people are jumping off. Like there's lots of high places you could jump off of. I guess I don't know. People just want to do it there. But
yeah, I'm looking at a picture right now. It does look actually pretty ideal. And what better place to do it?
Now we sound like dicks for laughing, but I mean,
if you're considering suicide, don't do it.
No, don't fucking do suicide.
But yeah,
if you do it at Hudson Yards,
the brand new $1 billion mixed use complex.
No, but it also fucks up everybody else's day who wants to climb up.
It does. It really does.
So, and among other things, but what I was getting at is when you go to an expensive store and the people there treat you like shit, which is in New York City, there's a decent number of times that I've been in some really nice stores, and there's been times I've walked in and I could afford to buy pretty much anything I want off the shelves, and there's been other times where I'm like, fuck, I'm in the wrong place. But
that's Pretty Woman, isn't it?
I don't know.
Goes into there's a scene. She goes into the shop. They look at her. She's like, "Oh, we're not going to help you." And then she comes back the next day with like all kinds of money. And it's like, you didn't help me yesterday. Fuck you.
Oh, here's a good one from Rush. People, what about sending food back at a restaurant?
I think that's acceptable.
Do
it politely.
I think I've sent food back maybe once or twice ever, and it's got to be like the wrong, like way wrong. I mean, if they brought you the wrong dish, that's one thing. If it like your steak isn't cooked to temperature, but like it's close, or I've seen people send like 3 or 4 wine bottles back, and they bring you the wine, they pour it, they open it for your table, and they go.
It's a spectrum for sure. Of them just doing it because they like the routine of just saying, I'm gonna fuck with this guy's day.
It's just
they get a kick out of it.
It's just somebody's way of being on top, and like, dude, if that's how you're getting on top, fuck you, man. Like, I get it if the wine tastes like it's sour, but for the most part, like, you're probably not a connoisseur. It's probably not off.
Derv, you can back me up on this one, like, as we've both worked in food and bev. So when I was a server and a bartender, primarily a bartender, and every once in a while, like when people would send food back or whatever, I'd be able to look at it and see, because every once in a while the kitchen would make a mistake. And so I kind of look at it and be like, all right, no, this does need to go back. And when you explain it to the kitchen, be like, hey, this is not what it was supposed to be. Though, like, the kitchen's not going to be upset about that one. Servers, bartenders aren't going to be upset if you're being reasonable. But if you're sending something back that's perfectly good because for either you didn't know what you ordered.
That's a huge one. That's a pet peeve of you fucked up. And now I have to fix your problem. I get it's service industry, but still that.
Right. So like if you ordered something and it was prepared correctly and you just don't like it because you screwed up yourself in terms of ordering something that you ended up not liking. No, you don't get to send it back. And also, if it was fine and you're just being super picky about things, because again, we're there to serve you and to make the best experience possible, but we have to be reasonable here. And so I would tell you that the times that I had to bring back food that was perfectly fine or whatever, like, we didn't mess with your food. You still got clean food coming out on the other side, but we all hated you.
Yeah, to quote Waiting though, do not fuck with the people that prepare your food.
So there is a great movie. It's called Waiting. Ryan Reynolds is in it, and there's a decent, not all-star, but kind of B-list celebrity cast as part of the movie. And you basically get to witness what happens, worst case scenario in the kitchen.
The movie gets a lot of stuff right.
Yeah, I mean it's
It does.
exaggerated, but it's also somewhat realistic.
Not as much as you think.
Exactly.
Hey,
So
hey guys, I found this dough here. I'm thinking about making calzone.
Chef, the thing fell on the floor. 5-second rule. 5-second rule.
Go, go, go.
a lot of
yeah.
a lot of
Good thing you got it that quick. Otherwise, we had to go to the 10-second rule.
I watch a lot of this free cable station that just came with a Samsung TV that we have here, and one of them is just the Cooking Network with Gordon Ramsay, where he goes into restaurants and he's just like, "This is fucking,"
Oh,
and a lot of like some gnarly shit happens.
you get sick on a few of them, yeah.
So I
Raj
got a good
is
one.
saying that, I want to read the comments that Raj is saying, like that, like you should only send your food back if like there's hair or bugs on it. And he's like, I worked in restaurants. You send food back, they spit on it. Now
Well-
we didn't do that,
Well,
but there were times where we really wanted to.
that was a comment from Doria, who said only if there's hair or bugs. Now, hair doesn't gross me out that much. Like I just move the hair off the food, and
I'm not sending unless there's like a ton of it or something. But
if there's
a hair in there, like I'm not sending the food back. I'll live.
Cody lost a Band-Aid in a dish at Dig once, and he felt so unbelievably shitty when he saw that sent back. He's like, "Oh my fucking god, I can't believe I sent that out."
Band-Aid.
That's-
Yeah,
The kitchen has pride. They want to send out good food.
Yeah, we're not. We were just line cooks. It's this little sports bar and grill up in North Charleston, and we tried really, really hard. The kitchen manager would let us all create our own specials like one day of the week. So, hey, Boswell, you want to do the special? Yeah, awesome. I came up with these really great steak tacos that moved. We cared, even for a teeny little $15 an hour job like that.
A lot of the. I mean, if you're working in a kitchen. Oftentimes there are other jobs that you could take. Like you're working in a kitchen a lot of times because like you want to be cooking and you like cooking. So there's working in a kitchen is not easy work. High pressure, fast paced. It's fucking hot.
Physically demanding.
And usually the pay's not that great.
No.
So you're doing it because you like cooking. Like that's that's your thing. There's other jobs you could take. So a lot of these guys do care about the food because it's their reputation to a degree. But
I'm reading Raj's comments.
What, in the pool and seeing the water change color, or the Band-Aid in the pool?
Like peeing
Band-Aid
in the pool.
Band-Aid
in the pool, you don't have too much control over.
Doesn't really bug me all that much. One, it's kind of chlorinated water. I'm gonna avoid it, but it's people who don't pick up after their dogs. That's a pet peeve. That's annoying. But in the same sense, people get super furious about little things like that they can't control. When you're walking down the sidewalk in New York City, do you stand there and scream, "Why are you here? Why didn't someone pick you up?" Like you're literally getting yourself worked up over a pile of poop.
Two things. I want to touch on the poop thing. You have a comment. Somebody I think else is in North Charleston. David, who's on the top of the screen, if you're watching live, doesn't live in North Charleston anymore. James on the bottom of the screen, he lives in Charleston, not in North Charleston. The poop thing. So this has happened a couple of times. I've drawn attention to it, I think at least to James. I've walked out of Starbucks and there's been human shit outside. There's two entrances, the main entrance on 7th Avenue, basically in facing Macy's, the largest retail store in the world. To my understanding, at least there's a big banner that says the largest retail store in the world. And it's facing the entrance.
How old is that banner?
I don't have any idea. I imagine there's probably a bigger store, but the banner's there. But again, this morning I walked out and I literally almost stepped on a human turd, and I kept going. And then like I'm on the elevator, I'm like, did I step in poop? I was like, fucking A, like there's no way I'm tracking human shit into my office. It's a fucking carpeted office. I was like,
one of us pooped.
I was so mad because I saw the turd on the ground. I was like, and it's not it's not dog shit. It's human shit because the homeless. I want to do another episode on homelessness and solutions and fucking dealing with it because it's getting really
Yeah,
bad.
We should
now,
send them all to public yard. It's a Hudson Yards.
and now that it's
They can jump.
Yo,
now-
you have to get tickets to walk up that stupid thing.
yeah, you do.
That's annoying.
But no, the homelessness in New York City is actually it's getting worse now that it's
Rox's comments are keeping me entertained.
all right, let me hit a couple more pet peeves, guys. Rude to waiters. Okay, so here's a good one. When somebody's got their volume up on their phone and they're not wearing headphones, they're just sitting solo.
Screaming at it.
Why?
Or just
No, I don't mean
walking,
in a-
having the
I
phone
don't
call,
mean-
just doing everything on speaker.
I don't mean in conversation. Yeah, the speakerphone. The thing is, my arms get really tired. So a lot. I end calls. I'm like, bro, my arm, like, I can't hold my hand up here anymore. So I get like talking to somebody on speakerphone. I do that sometimes, not at a loud volume, but it's like when somebody's playing a game on their phone, or
Oh, yeah.
they're listening to all the fucking time on the subway and the train. I see people and hear people listening to music and watching music videos on their phone at full volume with no headphones on. Drives me nuts.
That's annoying. That's why these noise canceling headphones are great, because then you can solve the problem for yourself.
Yeah,
Dude,
buy yourself a pair.
noise canceling headphones, one of my favorite purchases I ever made, especially when it comes to flying, and one of the products I looked forward to so much. I one time, like this is probably 20 years ago, when the Bose noise canceling headphones first came out, and I was in the airport and they had this big Bose setup, and I put the headphones on and literally the noise just disappeared from the airport. It was the coolest thing ever. And then I couldn't afford them for the longest fucking time.
Yeah.
And then one time I had a couple of cocktails at an airport bar waiting on a flight, past the like Best Buy machine with all the products in it that are like exact retail price plus tax.
Yeah, they do a good job. That's actually a really
But
smart idea.
people on vacation spend fucking money. People like fly to New York City and then go to these bullshit stores and buy hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of hundreds to thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but probably if they're going to the expensive ones. People spend so much money on vacation. It's a weird mindset.
It is.
It's
Well, it's
weird.
also if you're foreign, then like it's you just let's play money. It's like this isn't real money.
Dude, that's definitely there's a good aspect of that. There's a good aspect of that.
Going out drinking in Spain is dangerous because you have all the euro coins. And you go out with 10 coins and you're giving them out because it feels like a quarter. Like, oh shit, that was a 2-pound coin. That was $3. Fuck.
Yeah, we were
Yeah,
playing
exactly.
the first night that we ever went out in Spain. We were playing quarters on a bar table, and we were just using whatever coins we had in our pockets. And it was dark. We were at the back of the bar. So like if we missed a shot or whatever, it fell on the floor. Sometimes we'd pick them up. Other times they would get lost. We probably spent more on the floor than we did on drinks.
That's fucking.
I know in Spain I spent more time on the floor.
All right, we're running low on time. I want to run through a couple more last minute cancelers, people who cancel plans last minute. I think that's really shitty because the other person is you've just fucked the other person for whatever amount of time they were planning to be spending with you. So
Because now they can't do anything else because they blocked out that time.
Dude,
Just overall flakiness is a huge pet peeve. And that's because you, James, and I are all some of the most loyal people that I know. Of if I were to call either of you and say, I need something right now, you less so because I haven't talked to you in too long. But if I were to call James, he'd drop whatever he had to do.
but
whatever I
also
asked of him.
if I said I was going to do it, I'd fucking do it.
Yeah.
Somebody told me a while back, and they were quoting somebody else, but they were trying to get a hold of somebody for permitting or something in New York City. And he's like, I know you're probably busy, but someone once told me, if you want something done, ask the busiest person you know. And I was like, fuck. And we managed it. We managed to actually, like, I was probably not the right person for the job, although maybe I was, but I got a hold of a bunch of people, got in touch with the person that was responsible for permitting, whatever it was, managed to work it out.
I disagree with that because, like, if someone were to ask me to have something done right now with it being tax season and moving it or whatever, someone was like, "Can you do this?" I'm like, "No, it'll have to wait." Like,
but
a
if
week and a half."
David told you he needed something, you probably would do it.
I might tell them that it would have to wait a week and a half.
Depends on what it was and the urgency of the
6
request.
days.
All right, I got 3 more. bringing a bottle to a party and then taking it with you when you leave. I get that one.
That goes to your manners one from earlier
Well,
too, which is it's something you don't do.
But I think James and I had that issue when we were way younger. I was like, you're not supposed to do that, man. But you don't know that if you're like, oh, that's mine. And also there's a lot of parties where it's BYOB. So, like, there's some crossing of lines there. Let's see. Expect pets to behave as humans. Rosh is listening to us on this one. One of my pet peeves is talking to people as if you are your pet. So like you're using your fake voice. Raj probably does this. He's probably hating me right now. But Raj knows my feeling on pets. And then the last one I got, which is
that's a pet peeve.
That's a pet peeve. And then the last one, which probably needs to be opened up a little more, but we won't. We'll end on this. Is fear-mongering marketing, which I could see how that could be a pet peeve because it's used a lot. And she was talking about beauty supplies, and I kind of get that.
I do like the infomercials where they're just trying to do the most basic thing of like hammering in a nail, and then she takes it like wax like 6 inches over. Like, you weren't even trying.
Where did the soda go? You ever go on that subreddit?
No.
All right, guys.
All right.
We'll bring up where did the soda go next episode because I don't know what James is talking about, but I'd like to. You guys on Zoom, stick around on Zoom. Everybody else, thank you for joining us. Doria, thank you on James' behalf for the compliments of his new setup. We're gonna get him with the bar in the background soon. And Rosh Stanline, thank you guys for joining. If you don't already, subscribe to SipTalk Podcast on YouTube. Please go to YouTube, type in my name, Justin DiGiulio, or just type in SipTalk. You will find the podcast. Also on audio podcast, all the platforms. Check us out, like us, give us some stars. We appreciate that. You help us grow. We're doing this because it's fun, but we'd like to have a greater reason to do this as well. So thank you guys for joining. We will catch you later. Adios. All right, homies, you made it to the end. Thank you for joining us. If you do not, please subscribe to SipTalk Podcast on the audio platforms and on YouTube. We greatly, greatly appreciate it, and we love interacting with you guys. So thank you again, and I will see you soon.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.